People unnecessarily make themselves statistics of losers, even though they did not qualify to be in that statistics. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to make yourself a statistics that there were 300 applicants, and out of that 300, only 6 met the minimum requirement. So meaning only 294. It wasted its time.
Some suppliers complain that our bids are not considered because procurement keeps awarding the same companies. What would be the case?
Firstly, let me say it's not wrong for one bid or similar bid to be awarded to the same company in every year if it's done annually. If they are the rightful winner in that instance, it is what it is. Your pricing must be reasonable. This thing of just doubling the price and hoping that maybe I'll be the lowest and they will appoint. You'll be the lowest, but we'll still cancel the bid because we're saying the prices that we have received are not market related.
True.
And cancel the bid on that basis. One of the biggest problem with participants is the pricing. We don't know how to price. We just price to be rich and not understanding the value chain.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Procurement Dialogues, and I am your host Lerato Sebata. Today guys, we're going to talk about probity audits. What does it take for a procurement function to run the procurement audits? Most of us see these things only at a later stage when it's published, go to Auditor General, publicity issues and the like. So we have an expert today who's going to tell us evaluations, probity audits, what does it take? How do you prepare yourself as procurement teams, including the suppliers themselves that put these guys in trouble? So we're going to welcome today our very special guest, Mr. Benneth Machaba, who is the head of procurement here at NECSA Group. Welcome, sir.
Hi, Lerato. Thanks for welcoming me, and good day to your viewers too.
Yeah, it's the second time you're coming here.
Yes.
I know. You are one of the guys that started with the first series of the Procurement Dialogues.
I remember.
You remember?
Yeah.
We were talking about excessive regulation in procurement.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Welcome back. How are you?
No, I'm okay. I'm okay. And wonderful to see that you are doing a great job in
Thank you.
unearthing whatever talent as well as the secret of the industry, so that those who participate or interested in this environment can have a first-hand information and be able to play fairly.
True.
So we appreciate what you're doing.
No, Kalebora. We are adding our own source into the mix. Supply chain, I guess, is interconnected.
Correct.
So at least we are doing the best we can, especially these conversations. Whatever was procurement in a secrecy for some reason. And I feel like in a little indoctrination.
It's not supposed to be like that.
Yes.
Particularly in the public sector. It's supposed to be common knowledge. Everybody needs to know what is expected and the do's and the don'ts, so that we all play fair.
We all play fair.
You're supposed to be referees for one another.
True.
Provided we know what's expected of us.
That's true.
So if we allow it to be in that fashion where it's secretive, it's forever going to disadvantage those who don't know.
That's true.
But in reality, it's supposed to be a public common knowledge.
That's true.
Where everyone is able to hold another one accountable. Yeah.
And I'm happy actually we're going to talk about today's topic, because it is, again, we see the issue of probity audits now for the most part. Carry tenders. You'll find consultants that are required to come and bid for this work. And I don't think some people know what does that mean or what does it entail. So from the start. You are head of procurement, you've been in supply chain for some time, you've run different processes, and evaluations and the like. So I want you to share with me, what are some of the things that you've seen happening in the processes that don't run well, that end up being an issue in the audit stage?
Look, there's a lot. A lot happens behind closed door.
Yeah.
In this environment, and maybe just to start with the probity audit as an introduction to then say it's a process which is meant to check and assess whether independently review the process that would have been done by those who do it on a daily basis. So it's an independent review that seeks to then say, has everything been done according to book? You know, and then give other stakeholders confidence that indeed things were done because they've been assessed by a third-party review, and then we were given thumbs up. In the absence of that, it is common knowledge that people get clouded by whatever that they do. I mean, having to do evaluation of tenders and RFQs Monday to Friday, the whole year for the next so many years. You can get clouded about the developments in your space. And even the little of errors can sort of like slot in there. So that process is meant to really say, we've done what we can to the best of our knowledge. Let's allow somebody independently to come and review this process and tell us whether we are okay or not, right? And then with that, the benefits of that is firstly, you give confidence to the authorities, because if you are talking about a multi-billion or multi-million bid, authorities will have these question marks before they sign out. And all they have in this case is your word that everything was done properly, you know. So they rely on your word that everything was done properly. As a practitioner, not forgetting that you can get clouded at times. And then, so the process really allows for that independent review. So it gives confidence to the authorities, as well as public trust. You know, where it is common knowledge that this entity does probity audit, public has sort of like a trust to the process and confidence on the outcome of that particular process. And at the same time, it obviously limits your irregularities insofar as compliance and expenditure is concerned. Because I remember, if you are going to award a bid incorrectly or not to the correct supplier because of whatever that might have happened as an error during the evaluation, third-party review will come in the form of AGSA or internal audit after. All right, which is post the process, and realize that this bid, which was done last year in April, has errors that were part of the evaluation, and that's a year later. All right, meaning that if you are spending 20 million per month on that particular bid, it's 20 million by 12
exposed.
That has been lost to irregularities. So you've got a regular expenditure of 120 million. And if it's an incorrect supplier that was awarded, you still have another liability now, because that supplier can take you to litigation and then want a compensation. So there's a lot to there's a lot to lose at the end of the day. So that is really the intention, to then say, let's introduce this phase in the entire process, so that we can give the authorities and the entity itself confidence that everything was done according to book.
So are these probity audits done, is it a standard procedure in the public sector for each institution to do it, or it is on appointment basis based on the structure of the policy of the organization?
So it's not standard, because it doesn't feature in the regulations.
Yes.
It's just a risk management process, which is it's a good tool to use. And even those that really implement them, they've got a threshold of some sort to then say, from a bid of maybe from 20 million,
that's when they
we'll start introducing probity audits, because now you are limiting your risk and so forth. So it's not a standard, but it will be great if it can become a standard, because it will then mean that all these tenders that are or transactions that are discovered later on to be irregular would have been prevented at the end of the day, and everything will be done fair and square.
But is the intention of doing these probity audits to have corrective measures after the bid? Obviously, at that point, it would have been awarded. Or is the intention to flag irregular expenditures?
So it depends when do you do your probity audit.
Okay.
All right, because remember, in many cases they do it before award, just before award.
Okay.
So the process will run, all the committees will run, specification, evaluation, and when they are done and have drafted the report ready to award, then you get the probity audit to come in to then say, please assess what we've done,
okay,
and tell us whether we are in compliance with the regulations as per what we said in our own bid or not, And at times you find that that the very same assessment can then flag, or the supplier that you've recommended, it did not score the highest as per maybe a PPR because you've not considered the points correctly in this element of evaluation. This one, you've omitted to give them 5 because they've given you 3 references as required. Now, if they score 5, therefore they qualify to be evaluated further, and subsequently their points will be more than this one that you've recommended.
Yeah.
So meaning that the bid almost went to the incorrect supply, but because of this probity audit, you've now corrected that the evaluation must be done properly, and then it goes to the eligible supply as intended. Now,
it is an interesting,
So that is the whole idea, and the question always comes as to when do we do probity audit?
Yes,
because others do it just before award, and then others do it from the onset when you start with a specification, which is an ideal way. Because remember, the irregularities of the process do not come after the evaluation. There are irregularities that may have been taken place on the specification itself that you published, that specification was biased and not fit for market, right? If the probity audit discovers that, it means that bid must be cancelled and go back to the market. But in a case where probity audit is done before, with every stage, then it will mean that specification will be corrected even before it's published.
So, institutions that I've seen they do probity audits have been more of an after the fact.
That's incorrect. That's an incorrect way of doing it.
That's not the nature of what the probity should do.
It's not the nature of it, because that work is what is done by your Auditor General.
Yes, when they now come
as
after.
well as your internal audit to review the process after the fact. The probity audit, the intention is to do it before award, to then say, before we can award, have we done everything accordingly? And then you've got thumbs up. Then you can move the bid to the next stage, which is evaluation, adjudication phase, and then award it. Then you move. Because what will be the point of you introducing it after the award? Because it's going to serve the same. Because remember, one of the intention is to then say, let's prevent irregularities, right? So if the bid was awarded to the incorrect supplier, already it's irregular expenditure. 1. 2, if the bid was awarded to an incorrect supplier, it means that already you are liable, because the correct supplier, if they happen to want to get debrief and realize and apply the principles of PIA, promotion of access of information, and realize that they were actually the intended winner, but they were denied that opportunity, they go to court, and then compensation must then come through. So you lose double. You've got irregular expenditure, and then you must still compensate, which will be classified as fruitless and wasteful expenditure, because it could have been avoided at the end of the day.
So now, do you think the public should know that an institution, or how will the public know rather, this institution has probity audit stages or not for particular threshold? Because I get procurement policies are not published publicly.
Correct. So look, even those who do them, many are either it's part of their policy, or is part of risk management. It might not be part of policy, but the procedure is part of risk management. And as I said, that out of 10 government entities or public entities, most probably less than 3 do the probity audit. The other 7 really don't do that. They just move as per norm. And I think we're saying that it's a new way of giving or introducing another layer of assurance, and everybody must move to adopt that mechanism. And even so, if the regulators can make it part of the instructions or introduce it as a guide to everyone to do that, it will be much better, because then everybody will know that this is how it's done, and therefore will have proper confidence in the public procurement process at the end of the day.
I get you. There's an institution I was consulting with, and they have it in their policy. But also it starts from 10 million. And then you wonder, irregular expenditure happens anyway, even if it's less than 10 million.
Correct.
So is the issue the threshold, or I guess the risk exposure, or are you auditing the process? Doesn't matter the amount.
Look, obviously one wants to balance the operational issues as well as the risk issues.
Yeah.
Because if you are to do it on every
Bid.
transaction, even the quotation process, 5,000, it might be too tedious and resource intensive. And that's a problem, because even the resources themselves in the space are very scarce. And that's why you see many of these things are outsourced to independent parties and so forth. Ideally, internal audit can still do it. Others use internal audit to do it. But those who are capable and have got the right resources, they use they will have a particular section within their procurement department called governance, which then seeks to verify these things even at the lowest of the lowest, because there are resources that are specifically hired to manage and assess these things. So it really depends on who's doing it and what's the appetite for it. The resource availability, and also looking at the turnaround time to then say, if the organization issues 50 RFQs in a day, and they are going to close on tomorrow, all of them, and the evaluation is done by the buyers tomorrow, then it will mean that before these RFQs are awarded, they must go through probity audit. And that might mean some of them will not be awarded by next week, or even
because now it's going to delay.
Correct.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's just a mechanism to then say, let's introduce threshold so that we limit the risk. And obviously the thresholds, it's really entity dependent. I've seen others saying, what's their materiality value with external auditors? When we are audited by AGSA, and there's a materiality factor, and then they take that and make it a threshold for probity audit to then say, anything above this, we need to make sure, because otherwise it can easily drive the process to defaulting.
Okay, so before we move on from this point, who then decides, as an institution, do we need to include probity audits as a part of our process? Is it head of procurement with CFO and the board? Who makes the decision?
Look, there's no standard process in terms of who does it. It can emanate from anywhere, as long as whoever that would have said it would have made the right noise in the organization, and they sold the right concept, where everyone, the authorities, then see and realize that this is a proper risk mitigation process. Then let's adopt it. Ideally, SCM as part of their process.
I think it should. Sit
if they can introduce it, it will be good. But you must remember how things happen is that myself, I don't believe what I do is wrong. And so is the next person. So you hardly introduce things that are going to then validate that you are wrong. And that's what happens. So that's why in many instances it will come from your audit and risk or from internal audit. After they've done the internal audit assessment, which is post the transactions, and realize that there's a lot of gaps, they can then recommend, or no, going forward, let's make sure that there's probity audit so that we minimize the risk at the end of the day. Now it's a decision that comes from an independent party, and it needs to be adopted. As I said, it's going to be very difficult for a practitioner to believe that they are wrong in what they are doing, and therefore they need somebody to validate their. That's why it's going to be difficult to introduce this from the procurement or practitioner's point of view.
I think it's an opportunity. Maybe also now that we have been busy with the regulation, there's a tribunal thing that is introduced.
Correct.
And maybe, I don't know, at the tribunal level, a supplier comes and complains about the process, which also would have triggered that audit. Do you know what I mean? I think they're interlinked somehow.
Yeah, look, I think, as I said, it's supposed to be a risk mitigation. That's how we're managing risk. And if you don't believe that there's risk in what you're doing, you hardly adopt that method of risk management. So with issues such as your tribunal that will be introduced by the new regulations, provided it still sticks as part of the final regulation. It's just a draft.
It's still draft, yeah.
Yeah, so if it comes back, it will really assist the environment in its own, because we might see many people moving towards that direction. And that on its own is just going to give everyone, all the stakeholders, confidence that, we no longer have to be worried, or there are things that happens behind the scene, because there's
this layer.
A short layer of assurance that really sort of like give us that confidence, or LSS pashash.
Provided is from outside, independent.
Correct. Correct.
Impartial.
Because remember, we assume that internal audit is supposed to be independent and impartial, and hence in the structure, in many instances, it doesn't report to the existing organizational structure, but to the authorities. Dotted line to the CEO, the DG, but directly reports to the Audit and Risk Committee. That is the way of trying to give them that independence.
Yes.
You mustn't be influenced by operational issues in fear of victimization, because none of these people will hold you accountable. You report to a different committee and so forth. But I think the more independent it is, the better.
The better.
The better. Yeah.
Got you. So now let's talk evaluation. You said that the intention of the probity audit is at least happen specification level, maybe before award. And we now know there are some challenges that are experienced in the evaluation where people miss the right frameworks, methods, and stuff. Mistakes happen. Since you have been in many different tenders, or even evaluated or been part of some of the audits, what have you seen that's common that maybe business does, or the bid adjudication committee will do as a challenge?
Sure. A lot happens in that space. A lot happens in that space. So, for instance, the general assumption is that you must evaluate the bid based on what was published on that bid. So that's the fairness part of the process.
Okay.
To then say, allow the participants to know how they are going to be evaluated, so that they can give you the right information. So if you say you want metric, I must submit metric. If you say you want 3 years working experience, I must prove that I've had 3 years working experience, as opposed to you just assuming after the effect, or no, but somebody with metric will be better, and you did not tell the market that you need metric. So that's the principle around it. But most of the common mistakes that normally takes place there, it's seeing that evaluation is done outside what was communicated to the bid document itself. So you've spec'd your requirements in a particular manner, and then there are certain aspects of the specification which were not explicit and were left to be implied. All right. So assuming that everyone will understand that this is what it means. And then now you come to the evaluation committee. It's different people, different thinking, and so forth. Then at that time, everyone starts using their perspective of how they see what was advertised. And then, you end up reaching a consensus, or no, let's adopt this one because it might be aligned to what we need, But in that process, you might be changing indirectly changing that which was communicated to the bid itself, which then becomes unfair. That's the very first mistake that normally happens there. Evaluating based on what was not published, for instance, your criteria said you need, as mandatory requirements, you need a particular registration to cancel, right? And if that requirement was not clear, you have different opinions there. So you might have said proof of registration with a particular cancel versus proof of valid registration with a particular cancel.
Ooh.
So the two are different, because I might give you proof of registration, but it's lapsed. The registration is not valid anymore because I haven't maintained my membership. So that's then drive for different perceptions during evaluation. Or no, but
It's
this
not
is
valid.
proof.
Yeah, this one is
No,
proof.
but you didn't say you want valid. You say you want proof.
So what happens in that case? Do you stick to what you advertise there in the tender?
Look, then it will depend on how is it going to end. Because you might end up getting what you really didn't want to get because of this vagueness in your specification. And in many instances, to be safe, people end up cancelling this tender and engaging the market afresh.
If it's too many different views.
Yes, being very clear in terms of what we want, because then these views might give you different outcomes at the end of the day. And at the same time, you don't want to disadvantage the players, and you need to be very clear in that. So those are some of the challenges that comes to play when you do the evaluations. And then the issue of whether it's subjective criteria that was used or which you normally use on your request for proposal, because a proposal now gives you different dynamics and you really need to apply your subjectiveness in adjudicating that process, or whether that criteria was objective. It's always advisable that people use the objective because it's clear as opposed to subjective. And where it's subjective, the risk there is you'll find that you scored somebody 9 out of 10, but one of your members scored that the very same company 2 out of 10, and we leave it as such.
But don't you address anomalies?
There's no rule that says it must be done as such. It becomes a fair process when you address those anomalies to then say, let's have discussion. In this element, I scored them 2. Somebody says I scored them 9. And then you must then discuss what is it that I saw to score 9 and what is it that you didn't see to score 2. And then when I make you see that that information that enabled me to score 9, then you must seek to now adjust because now there's alignment. So it's not always a compulsory thing to do the adjustment, just like a recruitment process at HR.
Yeah.
It might be that now I'm saying I want to live at 2, and nobody must force me that I must move from 2 to 9.
This part of the video is sponsored by our very own Tender Success Blueprint. This is the only book and a workbook that you will get in South Africa that, of course, teaches you practical ways of doing tendering. If you are somebody who's been wanting to start responding to a bid, responding to an RFQ, you don't know how procurement works, this is the right place for you to start. It is beginner friendly. It is also friendly for those that are becoming a little bit advanced in understanding how to do bid together. And of course, it's trainer ready. So if you're somebody who's doing training, you are working with SMMEs, you are doing bid management, you respond to bid administration, this is something that you need to have right next to your desk. Remember, Tender Success Blueprint is the only workbook that you need for your next bid to be able to win. Get it on our website, www.roigroup.co.za. But now this brings me to this point here. Evaluation team members, they're also not always abreast with what's happening in the market. They may not always be experts in that particular space. And hence you find such cases where somebody scored 1 5 out of 10, 1 10 out of 10. Is that why Honor did bid evaluation trainings?
Yeah. So remember, you try to have a multi-party committee, which consists of people that are not day-to-day members of SCM, and it can be expected that those members must know regulations A up to Z, similar to the practitioners. Now, many institutions then move towards that direction of then say, annually, let's have a bid committee training, which seeks to give you awareness about the do's and the don'ts. That training sort of like gives you the light in terms of what you must do, what's your responsibilities when you're in that committee, to then remember that you can't be bullied in that committee. You are exercising your rights there, because once you are in this committee, you are an accounting officer, because you are appointed by the accounting officer. So if there's a DG or a CEO in that particular institution, you are the DG or you are the CEO of that particular organization. And all of us here are CEOs, we are equal. So you mustn't feel intimidated by any member of this committee by virtue of their original position in the organization. But by virtue of me being executive in a particular department, now I must then bully you in the process. That's what people lack to understand.
But is it fair, though, Kenneth, how these bid evaluation committee members are selected? Because you can imagine if someone does not know much about this process or this particular commodity, then now they are part of it to learn and to read a bid and now evaluate an award.
Look, it's a fair process. Remember, again, the committee system is a risk mitigation process as well.
Okay.
So imagine a process where SCM will be running everything A up to Z. The risk might be double, because even in the presence of committees, we still have a risk. All these bids that are flagged in different assessment, be it by public protector, different commissions, AGSA, they've passed through the committees and they are still flagged. So meaning that if the same process was done by SCM alone, that quantum can be doubled or even tripled. So it's a fair process, and that's why in many instances it seeks to appoint senior people in the organization, not just everyone who will be able to account and not allow pressure if it's not due, So somebody who will be able to say, I'm saying I don't agree with what you're doing, and please minute my position as such, as part of that. So if you are a senior resource in the organization, it's easy to do that because you understand. But if you're going to be a junior resource in the organization, and there's this executive from a different department, be it HR or marketing or IT, and they use their positional power, you might feel intimidated and tend to want to buy face and agree. No. I agree with what the executive is saying. Forgetting that here we are outside a different operational environment. Here we are implementing the delegation on behalf of the accounting officer, and we are all equal in this committee. And no one must bully one another. So if I'm not okay with what you're saying, I must say so. And you need to convince me through whatever that maybe I'm wrong. But if not, my position must be minuted as such that I don't agree with whatever that's happening. So coming to whether the fairness of the skills and the resources that are appointed there. Look, that's how committees works, unfortunately. If you are a board member in a particular entity, you are expected to come and contribute even though whatever that they are doing is things that you might not have seen before in your life and so forth. But you just need to familiarize yourself with the developments in that environment. So similar to the committee system, once you're appointed, they will share with you your operational procedures, SCM policy, just for you to read and have an idea. Every time there's changes from the regulator, they share this information with you so that at least you keep abreast with the latest developments. And then it's upon you as a committee member to really start reading these things and understanding so that you're not left behind. Because otherwise, in the absence of that, you have a situation where 90% of the committee members are saying yes. And without even understanding, you just go, you also say, no, I also agree. Not knowing what these people are saying yes to the wrong decision. And as you have seen with the latest developments, you are accountable in your own capacity.
You are.
So
You have to apply yourself.
Yeah. So when it's time for you to be in the dock, you follow the rest, and you can't go there and tell the magistrate that I saw everybody said yes, and I had to say yeah. You need to really substantiate why did you say yes in that particular decision.
Sure. So, Benneth, it's of the public view, some suppliers complain that our bids are not considered because procurement keeps awarding the same companies. From the procurement plans that are published, we prepare well, some keep bidding the same tender 3 times a year, 4 times, sometimes every second year, but the very same bid gets awarded to the same guys. What would be the case in such instances as a form of complaint?
Well, firstly, let me say it's not wrong for one bid or similar bid to be awarded to the same company in every year if it's done annually, because if they are the rightful winner in that instance, it is what it is. Right? We can't say there's no process that then allows the fact that because ABC won last year the stationary tender, this year they are eligible again. They scored the highest. We say no, but you won last year and year before, so we can't award. There's no process that says that, because it's going to be against the principles of administrative justice.
But now let me come
justice.
in.
Yeah.
In that scenario, where you've probably seen this happen, what would have been the factors that are contributing for the other guys to be disadvantaged by this company?
Well, you wouldn't say it's disadvantaging them.
Well,
because remember, it's a market.
Competitive bid.
Yeah, it's a market, and we're all competing. And in actual fact, chances always happens to be like that. If I get to be appointed here as a cleaning company this year for the next 3 years, after these 3 years, when you advertise that bid again, if there's somebody who's more eligible to come back as a winner, it's me more than anyone else, because now I know the nitty-gritties of what happens here. If the pricing says you have to clean the bathroom mirrors 3 times a day, but me knowing that these people are very careful, I clean them once in every 2 days. So my pricing doesn't go to that level of 3 times a day, because I know the environment, while others will be pricing on 3 times a day, and subsequently I come back as a winner. So the onus lies with the losing bidder to then want to know, what did I do not to get it right, because it wouldn't help Lerato for me to lose this bid this year. Next year, the same bid comes again, and then I do nothing different to what I did last year. Now, the first thing that you need to do different, after losing this bid this year, I must seek to understand from that entity as to, I've noted from your information that you published that Lerato Consulting is the one that won the bid at the cost of maybe 5 million. Now, the cost is clear there. It will show that it's 5 million. So you must then look at yours, or what was your pricing? How far were you with the 5 million, right? And then if, you don't know at this point whether you lost because of the pricing or you lost because of other technicalities. Now it's worth asking the buying institution and ask, where did I go wrong? And the institution must tend to tell you, on your technical response, we then set 3 references that are relevant. While you've attached three references, but they are not relevant. Yeah, they are not relevant to the product in question. We say, because people tend to confuse these things in the market. When you buy service, you want debtors, not creditors, right? Somebody who's going to submit a reference that is for creditors. It's not relevant. It's finance, but it's not relevant to debtors. So there's those nitty-gritties that people must really take care of from the point of packaging the bid. Be very clear and make sure that you comply to that, because people tend to just print your company profile as it is. It has last time it was updated was 3 years back, and just attach it, assume that everything in terms of your existence, number of years in the, but is it relevant to the bid? If it's not, that will disadvantage you.
So now for guys that are doing multiple businesses, how do they, what advice can you give them to make it relevant? Because remember, I also asked you offline that someone from the summit asked, why doesn't the public sector give us reference letters? But they are the first people to demand reference letters.
The question is, did you ask for it?
I'm sure they asked.
Yeah, but if you asked it, you need to be given. It's only fair process that you be given, provided it's a positive reference. Because remember, that reference, if it's negative, you might not want to use it.
But who are they supposed to ask?
There's multiple parties in the organization. Ideally, the supplier entity relationship is obviously managed from the supply chain point of view. If you go to your supply chain and say, look, I've done this work with 1, 2, 3, can I please get a reference? Supply chain must then connect the dots with the responsible project manager or business owner to then say, this company was working for you for the past 3 years. Were you happy with whatever that they were doing? And obviously, that will also form part of the file. Because remember, the expectation is that where there's a contract or work that needs to be done, there need to be performance monitoring. And that performance monitoring must take place between the supplier, the business owner, as well as SCM, which is going to play the middle part to make sure that there's alignment between two parties, right? Because in the absence of SCM, you might find that somebody was doing good in the past 3 years, and in the last month, we just had a misunderstanding with the project manager, and then that can change that whole 3 years of good work into bad reference, So it's critical that we have that process of supplier performance monitoring, which is monitored periodically. Now, from where I'm sitting as SCM, I will be knowing that in the past 3 years that we've worked with Lerato Consulting, we had periodical review every quarter where we'll sit between business and Lerato. And so far, everything was 100%. So I'm happy.
Mara Benneth, most institutions, they don't do that. Maybe your organization, but most public sector, they don't do those.
Performance monitoring.
Yes.
Yes, I know. I know it doesn't happen, but that's a problem. That's the problem, because one of the disadvantages of not doing it is exactly where you find a bad service provider. A bad service provider who was servicing you for the past 3 years, having to come back again. And during that time of finalization of evaluation, you want now to be emotional and say, but I can't work with this supplier because their service was very poor in the past 3 years. Is there any way where you documented that the service was poor? In the absence of that, you are going to work with them because there's no standing reason and justifiable reason why we must not award the bid to them. So with such kind of risk, and people must know these things up front, that in the absence of that performance monitoring process, it's going to be very problematic to want to stop the bad supplier from coming back, And I can't listen to you as procurement or the committee. We listen to you by just saying that, no, I was not happy with their performance. But did you tell anyone? Were they given a chance to come and defend their position as well? Because at times you find that my delay in service delivery is as a result of late payment that you guys are doing as an organization. Now, am I really a bad supplier? Because my action is influenced by your action. Now, in the absence of procurement getting both parties together and seek to align the two, it becomes difficult. So you are going to disadvantage me on the basis that I deliver late. But were you paying me on time? No. Are you disadvantaging yourself on that? No. So it's a catch-22 situation of some sort, which then means that it's critical that these steps be included in the overall process so that you are able to know. So when you say, I do not want to work with this bidder because they've performed very poorly in the last term, procurement must not be surprised because they know that we were part of these meetings that we were discussing on quarterly basis. We've given the supplier several chances to correct what they needed to correct, but they were not doing that. And we even reported that to NECSA.
So is that not discretionary for the bid evaluation committee to look at that? Or it's procedural as per regulation?
Look, it needs to be fair. There isn't anything that says it cannot be done, but it needs to be fair. So it needs to be fair and justifiable at the end of the day. So in the case where you've introduced your supplier performance monitoring, and every quarter we've been sitting, we've got minutes to prove that you are not doing well. We tried to correct, and we even reported you to National Treasury, and there's a judgment against you. Then it's an obvious factor, because National Treasury will afford you an opportunity to defend and see and realize, but indeed you were given opportunities to correct your poor performance, but you still failed on top of that. So they are well within their rights to stop you from getting this bid because of that.
Oh, discretionary.
Yeah. But if it's not going to come at the end, the project manager says, I had very bad experience with Lerato. Fairness dictates Lerato must prove that they have afforded the supplier an opportunity to correct their behavior. And in many instances, there's nothing to that effect. Yeah. And then it becomes problematic to just stop it like that.
Now this brings me again to this point, following on from what you just said. There are things that happen in evaluation which are material changes and some are not material changes. And we made an example the other day that I submitted a bid and I forgot to attach the right BEE. I had attached the expired BEE certificate, but I had the current one. It's just literally a human error of going to attach, selecting the one that ended last month, though I have a new one. 2 days later, I realized, oh, crap, I made a mistake. Then I emailed the buyer. Sorry, we attached the incorrect BEE, but here's the correct one. But you can tell from the dates that it's not something I did it today. It was an issue of it expired in April. I just attached the one ending that year. But then now I submitted. So my question is, this happens quite a lot in bidding and evaluation. What happens in that case? Am I going to be prejudiced to say, sorry, wrong? Or there's an application of, okay, maybe we can consider, is that a material change? Not? Can you just explain how these things are dealt with?
Look, it all depends on the categorization of the requirements. And that is to then say there are mandatory requirements and there are administrative requirements, which will not change the competitiveness of the bid in any way. Even the mandatory requirements needs to be fair and specific to that particular bid. So it shouldn't be one-size-fits-all approach on tenders. You look at a particular bid, its specifics as well as the type of requirements that you are going to use as mandatory. So if you are going to be buying engineering services, as an example, and then you then say you want proof of registration with Engineering Council of South Africa, it's a fair process. It's justifiable, and that. And then you have a situation where somebody then says, I'm buying electrical services. And instead of saying I need a professional engineer, the lead engineer must be a PR professional registered engineer. And then I just say I need a PhD in electrical engineering. Either that or I'm going to disqualify. It becomes unfair, mandatory requirements, because really the market doesn't adopt that standard. We normally talk about registration with the council as well as the PR of some sort. So we need to be very careful when we do that, because some of them are not justifiable. When you look at it, you realize, this bid is very biased. Maybe this specification was drafted with someone in mind, and that is what we seek to try and avoid at all times. Now you've got what we call administrative requirements, which really when you assess them, the service provider did not sign the standard bidding document or SBD form, right? Will allowing them an opportunity to come and sign, prejudice anyone in terms of competitors? The answer is no, right? Then they must be allowed. You write to them and allow them to do that.
So that is allowed?
Yes, that is allowed.
Okay.
Provided it's administrative requirements.
So it's not going to alter the score, alter the position?
Yeah. So for as long as it's not in a situation where I'm saying, Lerato, I'm looking at your prices and I think there's a zero missing. Can you please come and include your zero? Because now that changes the dynamics of the bid, But for administrative documents, you forgot to come and sign the SBD form. We allow you to come and sign it. Or you forgot to include it for that matter. We'll write to you and say, please submit your completed SBD form. There's nothing wrong with it. Then you have situations with references. Where you've requested for references. In many instances, people, when they request for references, they become very prescriptive. To then say a reference must be on a company letterhead, that it must have the contact person and the details, it must have the product name and the value, right? And all that. Now, forgetting that some of this information is not within my control. My responsibility is to write to my previous company that I worked with to then say, can I please have reference? I've done business with you in this field, and I'm looking for a reference, and it must be in this format. The organization can write and say, Lerato Consulting did work for us for the past 18 years, and Lerato was doing cleaning. Right? And they don't put the value for that matter and leave it like that. There are people who then during the evaluation want to disqualify you because the reference doesn't have a value as you prescribed. But the reality is that was putting the value on that reference letter part of my responsibility? Is this something that I can control as a bidder? No. You find that the buying entity had reasons why they did not want to put value there. And part of the reference is just to trigger the conversation between the buying entity and the previous buying entity. It is not meant that ABC must be there. As long as there's a letter that shows that Lerato did cleaning for 18 years, obviously if Lerato was not doing good, Lerato can't be doing this for 18 years, as a starting point. Part of this process is to then say, I'm confirming that Lerato has done work for us in cleaning and for 18 years, and my contact details are there. It is then the responsibility of the buying organization as part of their due diligence to phone and confirm. It shouldn't be that reference is taken on its value or no, there's no value.
Then why do other departments request all of those things? But some are rigid. I mean, SABC, I know they do it. They want in this particular way. If you don't submit it in that particular way, your bid is put aside.
It's unfair. It's really unfair.
And that's not regulated, right?
Yes. It's unfair. And really, I can tell you now, whoever that is doing that, if they are taken to task, they will lose that battle. Because I'm saying, judge me based on what is in my control. Now, I just emailed somebody and said, I want a reference in this format. But they responded and they did not put it in that format. Why should I be disqualified based on that? The responsibility of the buying entity is to then take this letter and trigger the conversation with the other. Similar to the human resource process. When they appoint you, you don't come with field reference letters and they agree or no, Lerato is going to be a good candidate, let's appoint Lerato. They call the references. So this was just the trigger.
You see, Bennett, the problem with public sector evaluation and tender processes, there's a lot of gray areas.
Correct.
That are not yet addressed, and I don't even know even in the new regulation they are going to be addressed. I know there's changes to SBD4, which it complicated even further, which is the conversation for another day.
No, it's not complicating it.
I feel like
it's a disclosure. It's only 2.4 of that. Well, Section 2.4 of that, which now want you to disclose other companies where you put directorship.
But then the clause before that, before where you disclose the MA numbers and stuff, it says where you have a controlling.
Yes.
Yeah? And then what is that? The company law says what? Where you've got a controlling interest.
No. So I don't think the intention is to describe, but just for them to know. Because remember, we then say...
No, Mara, if we're disclosing a company, where controlling interest, what does that mean? 5% or 100%? Yes. I can be a director in many other a non-executive in NPCs, I'm supposed to be disclosing all of those where my controlling interest is what?
So I think the intention, remember there hasn't been, what do you call, a training or awareness around that document as yet.
Yes.
I think there's a session that is scheduled for this week, if I'm not mistaken. And the implementation date is the 1st of August, right? So when I look at it, I look at it differently to then say, this will assist in managing possible conflict. All right? So at this current moment, there's a possibility that Lerato might be submitting 3 quotations where Lerato has controlling interest.
Yeah, people do a lot of that.
Yes. And it's not written anyway. Then the committee or whoever, the buyer evaluates it as such, because these are 3 different companies. And then we are what? Not understanding that behind the scene, Lerato is the one who did all three submissions,
which is not allowed.
Yes, well, So when I look at that in USBD form, I look at it in that way. This will trigger the situations where we start managing conflict better, because now I will be able to know firsthand by just reading this document that there's Lerato here, there's Lerato here, there's Lerato here. All these 3 RFQs were submitted by Lerato.
But there's a qualifier, Benneth, that I feel like it's not clear yet.
No, let's allow the regulator to have this session and qualify.
Also, us as practitioners,
I understand what you say.
We sit in these evaluations and we are confusing the public, you see.
Hence I'm saying, it's a norm with the regulator, National Treasury, that after issuing a new instruction, there's going to be engagement where people must ventilate their frustration, and they are going to clarify what is the reason behind it. And then we are better aligned, all of us, to then say...
I think at the very basic level is exactly what you've said, to say how, at least just disclose, where are you a director?
Correct.
Which institution? And if they are registered with CSD, ne? What are the numbers? But then there's other interests that one has in other institutions that are not there, registered with CSD, and they're doing business still. So what happens? Tricky.
No, I hear what you say.
We'll talk about it some other time. Going back to evaluation, just to close on this point, as with our conversation, is those nitty-gritties, where a bidder needs to be aware. When I submit a bid and then I see this in the evaluation, what is it that I need to do to ensure that I'm in a probable chance to win? And you as the practitioner behind the scene, the things that you see that we miss as suppliers, that needs to be corrected,
Everything needs to be corrected. Look, the intention of the bid should be very clear and straightforward. There should be no vagueness in the process. And that clear requirement on the other side must be received as such. So the example that I gave earlier on about creditors and debtors, if we are buying creditors and we say relevant references, your reference must be to creditors, not debtors, because debtors is a different environment in finance, altogether. So those are the nitty-gritties that people don't normally check. So then say, is this really relevant to what I'm bidding for? We say deep cleaning. Deep cleaning altogether, it's a completely different type of cleaning. When you are attaching a reference, your general cleaning, it's not relevant to deep cleaning. So the bidders must make effort to go to the smallest of the smallest understanding of what has been said there, and then unpack these things so that you understand. And when you submit the documents, they are relevant to what you are submitting to. The methodologies that is required and all that must be specific to this bid. And I've seen many instances where people just attach a company profile, assuming that it has these things, but it's not explicit as what we want in the bid. Similar to your CVs. You don't clever people. They don't take their CVs that was drafted in 2015 and just because I've been working for the same company, just send it all the time. You customize it according to what the job spec says, because some of these things you've done, but they are not coming as clear on your CV. You look at the job spec and say, I've done these things, but let me make it be very loud on the CV so that I can match what is required.
So for people who remember things with the power of 3, tell me the 3 things that you think you've seen in evaluations that disqualify bids. Or someone just loses over a very small thing and they were in the running.
Now you want to go deep.
Deeper.
Look, one will be exactly what I've just said.
Yeah.
Just generically responding to the request without customizing your proposal to the specifics of the bid. That's one. 2, it's with regard to the requirements of the bid, to then say, to what extent do you really value what was said to be requirements in that bid? Because I'm saying if the bid said they needed NECSA as a registration and you don't have NECSA, stop wasting your time, because there will never be an instance where they are going to receive no NECSA and then make a consensus, or no, let's work with those without NECSA, because it won't happen like that. So people always try to guess these things and assume or no, well, maybe they don't find somebody with NECSA and they will come to us. It won't happen. Once they don't find somebody with NECSA and they deem NECSA not necessary, they are going to cancel this bid and reissue it without NECSA, and then you'll be allowed to participate. So people unnecessarily make themselves statistics of losers, even though they did not qualify to be in that statistics. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they needed a master's for that CEO's position. You've applied anyway, but you don't have master's. So you want to make yourself a statistics that there were 300 applicants, and out of that 300, only 6 met the minimum requirement. So meaning 294. It wasted its time. So you're making yourself just part of the statistics. So bidders must stop that. And really, one of the part of having objective evaluation criteria is to allow you to sit. On receiving of this document today, if you download it today, you look into the spec, I can do it. Then you go to the evaluation criteria. And then you must take a pen or pencil and say, 5 relevant references. You'll score 10. I'll score 10. Methodology must cover 1, 2, 3. I'll be able to do that. And then this is how much I'll score. This and that. Lead engineer must be PR-Eng. I do have a lead. Then you score yourself to then say, the threshold is 70. Do I make 70? If yes, then you proceed with the bid. If no, then just stop it there, because there's nothing that is going to change internally that will allow you to qualify, because these requirements are not going to be loosen up internally. Let's flex these ones and maybe we're too harsh. Once they do that, they come back to the market.
Okay.
And then the last 3 will be pricing. To then say, one of the biggest problem with the participants is the pricing. We don't know how to price. We just price to be rich and not understanding the value chain. If you are to supply paper to a particular entity, and that paper, SAPI or Mondi sells it for 350, there's no need for you to sell that paper for 700 rand. There's no value add on your side except delivering it to the user and so forth. So you find people going for 50%, 100% profit margin for something that they are not adding any value, and that is where the problem comes in, malpricing into the commodities that they buy. And it might be because of various factors. One, it might be that you're buying from third-tier suppliers. and not going to the distributors. Yeah, because if that Mondi sells this thing for 350 and then the distributor sells it for 400, and then this one where you contacted, they sell it for 450. Obviously, when you want to make something again, you sell it for 650. It's not going to work. So if you are interested in a particular market, make time to understand that market, the cost drivers and so forth. And your pricing must be reasonable. This thing of just doubling the price and hoping that maybe I'll be the lowest and they will appoint. You'll be the lowest, but we'll still cancel the bid because we're saying the prices that we received are not market related.
True.
And cancel the bid on those basis.
All right. No, thank you so much for sharing this information. I'm going to ask you to come back again. We're going to talk about maybe the regulation will be finished and done by then. The policies, it won't be a draft anymore. The updates will be done. But yeah, for what is worth today, thank you for clarifying the Probity Audit and the dynamics around evaluation criteria. I also think we can unpack it further for other stuff. Maybe allow people to comment and take some of the questions next time.
Yeah, look, it's a very dynamic environment, and there's no one-size-fits-all approach. Each bid has got its own dynamics, and different entities will pitch it differently. There are some of the commodities that at times don't need technical evaluation criteria, but you see entities using that evaluation criteria right through all their bids, and these are some of the engagement that we need to have as an industry to then say, remember, this thing is not compulsory. If you've got confidence that you're buying paper and they just need 50 boxes per month as part of your contract for the next 5 years, there's really no need for you to go to that extent where you need to look at the financials, whether I'll have capacity. It's just 50 boxes per month, what are the chances, but if you're talking about entities that are paper intensive and we're looking at an order book of 3 million of worth of paper, then it's a different dynamics, So it shouldn't be a one-size-fits-all approach where you just put this thing everywhere and at times it deter competition and deter others from participating in your space and so forth. So we need to have that conversation as industry.
I'm going to host a CPO podcast, and I'm going to have 3 of you guys talking at the same time.
3 of them, not of you.
Including you. Benneth, let's leave it here for today.
All right, thanks,
Thank
Lerato.
you so much.
No,
guys,
it's a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening today. Please continue to subscribe and leave your comment down below so we can ask Benneth important questions going forward. I'll see you in the next one.